The elevator door slid open on the 14th floor, where Marcus stood, breathing heavily, his hand still grasping the cool metal of the elevator button. He had almost missed it. The day had been a blur of meetings and numbers, and he wasn't sure he'd ever feel his feet hit the ground again. With his mind racing, he stepped out, nearly colliding with a small crowd of employees standing in the hallway, chatting amongst themselves. Marcus took a deep breath, adjusting his tie, forcing a smile. Just another day in the corporate grind. As he turned to walk down the hall, he didn't notice the woman behind him rushing toward the elevator. "Wait," she shouted, her heels clicking against the tiled floor. Without hesitating, Marcus spun on his heel and rushed back to the elevator. He pressed the button repeatedly as if it would make the doors open faster. When they finally did, she slipped inside just as the doors began to close, breathless and grateful. She said, her words spilling out in a rush. "I thought I was going to miss it." Marcus nodded, smiling politely, though part of him just wanted to escape this cramped space. As the elevator descended, the atmosphere felt heavy. He could sense the tension, not just from his own anxiety, but from the woman next to him. She ran a hand through her hair, clearly stressed. She asked, glancing over at him. He replied, trying to keep it light, "Same here." "Just a little more important, if you know what I mean," she said, a worried smile playing on her lips. Before Marcus could ask more, they stopped at the 12th floor and the door slid open again. A group of executives filed in. He recognized the tight-lipped CFO and a few other higher-ups whose faces he had seen in the boardroom. They filled the tiny space, and Marcus felt heat rise to his cheeks. He could practically feel the pressure in the air changing. The doors closed, and the elevator lurched downward. As it descended, the lights flickered for a moment, and there was a heavy silence. Marcus felt only a slight shift of unease, but the atmosphere grew thick with tension. The CFO shot a glance at the elevator's control panel, the digits flickering down, stuck on floor 8. Then it happened. The elevator jolted to a stop, sending a wave of panic through the group. The lights dimmed further, and a low humming filled the air. Marcus's heart raced. What now? He was about to protest, to call for help, when the CFO pulled out his phone and cursed it under his breath. Turning to face the group, Marcus realized they were all losing their cool. The woman next to him was practically biting her lip. She said, her voice trembling. "Not unless someone has a signal," the CFO retorted, his eyes darting around. "We need to get moving." The gravity of the situation sank deep in Marcus's chest. He thought about the meeting they were heading to, a meeting that could define his career. If he didn't impress today, he could lose everything he had worked for. The weight of expectation hung heavily over him, and he could sense the fear emanating from everyone else. "Guys, let's stay calm," Marcus said, trying to sound confident. Somehow he wanted to project strength, but inside he felt like he might crumble. A moment passed, and then ****. The elevator jolted again, lights flickering. The woman beside him quickly pressed the emergency button. "Help," she yelled, but there was only silence in response. Her shoulders slumped, and Marcus could see her panic rising. He could relate. No one in that tiny elevator should be trapped with someone like the CFO. That man had built his career on being ruthless. He couldn't hide the irritation in his voice. The executives began to shuffle, some checking their phones desperately. But there was that lingering uncertainty. None of them had any signal, just like Marcus. What if this went on for hours? The power of storytelling often lies in what we don't see. People reveal their true selves in times of crisis. Marcus's eyes widened as he realized this wasn't just an elevator stop. It was a psychological experiment. Each person was tipping bare into vulnerability. "I can't believe we're stuck here," the woman said, her voice trembling. She glanced at Marcus again. "You look familiar." "Sort of. Sometimes I help with projections," he replied, probing to keep the conversation going. "What about you?" "I'm working on a deal with some investors," she admitted, anxiety shimmering in her eyes. Her voice faded, the weight of her thoughts heavy in the air. It struck him then she was carrying her own burdens of success. The elevator shuddered again, and they all tensed. "Focus on your breathing," Marcus suggested, channeling every ounce of calm he could muster. Surprisingly, others mirrored his movements, even the CFO, who let out a frustrated grunt but followed the rhythm. Moments later, the tension fractured when the woman suggested, "Let's introduce ourselves." One by one they spoke, each sharing small snippets about their lives. There was Philip, a junior executive who still believed in making a difference. And Sarah, a new recruit with ambitious dreams who loved numbers just as much as Marcus did. Each story peeled a layer of the corporate armor they wore, revealing parts of themselves they usually kept hidden under the pressure of high stakes. As they shared, the dynamic shifted. Discussions turned back to the meeting, their ambitions and dreams. The CFO even cracked a joke about missing his lunch. Laughter erupted amid the claustrophobic space, melting some of the fear hanging in the air. Time seemed to blur like paint on a canvas, yet just as they were laughing, another jolt rocked the elevator. But this time the woman next to Marcus had her phone light on, illuminating her stressed face. Suddenly everyone turned their attention to her. "You said it was important, right?" She nodded, and the fear returned to her eyes. "It's the CEO. I need to report on the progress." She bit her lip, doubtful. "I can't just call." "Just try," Marcus urged, feeling an intense surge of empathy. The fear in her expression mirrored his own about the meeting. The pressure hung in the air, thick but hopeful. That small flicker of courage rose between them. Finally, she made the call, her voice trembling with the weight of responsibility, a storm of uncertainty swirling above them all. "Hi, this is Jenna from marketing. I'm trying to reach you and we're stuck in the elevator," she said, steadying her breath. The silence in the elevator was electric. Everyone held their breath, their urgent thoughts coiling tightly together like vines. Jenkins asked, every ear leaned in, hoping for the slightest word of reassurance. Jenna continued, "I believe in the project." The phone crackled slightly. Then suddenly the elevator hummed back to life. The lights flickered and with a startling asterisk clank, the doors parted. Air rushed in and they all stumbled out into the hallway, the taste of freedom instantly intoxicating. The weight of their shared experience washed over them. They had pushed through together, forged connections in that small space, and each stepped into the world outside with fresh determination igniting their spirits. "Thank you for holding the elevator," Jenna said quietly, smiling at Marcus. Her eyes reflected strength and resolve. "I think we'll all be okay after this." He smiled back, feeling a mixture of relief and pride. He had not only held the elevator, he had become part of something bigger, a chance meeting that could change many lives for the better. And as they parted ways, each step forward echoed a promise that no matter how small it seems, they'd never forget how a simple moment turned into a profound journey, one that showed the true strength of courage and connection. The elevator doors were about to close when Marcus made a snap decision that would change everything. He had only a split second to decide, but something inside him churned, a mix of instinct and the chaotic energy that filled the office lobby. He held the doors open, and the moment his hand pressed against the metal, he felt the weight of opportunity. In rushed an executive, her hair pulled back tightly, eyes gleaming with urgency. She gasped as the door slid shut behind her, sealing both of them in the small, metallic box. If there was a formula for tension, this was it. A trapped elevator, two strangers, one of whom was about to be consumed with anxiety over her looming call. As the elevator began to descend, Marcus could sense her distress. The soft hum of the machinery was punctuated by her rapid breathing. He could feel the heat radiating off her, palpable and thick. Moments before, everything felt routine, just another day in the corporate grind. But now, as they hovered between floors, he sensed something more primal, something human. Marcus asked, breaking the silence, trying to anchor the moment. 10th, she replied, her words spilling out in a rush as she fumbled for her phone. "I have a call with the CEO in 3 minutes. The urgency in her voice tugged at something inside him. It reminded him of the time he had to present to the board, his palms clammy, heart racing. The stakes felt impossibly high. "You'll do fine," he said, the words a shield against the encroaching nerves. The elevator jolted unexpectedly, and both of them stumbled slightly, their eyes wide. She snapped, her voice rising in pitch. Panic flickered behind her eyes. "It's probably just a minor glitch," Marcus replied, trying to keep the calm, even as his own heart drummed louder in his chest. But in that moment of uncertainty, something deeper glimmered beneath their interaction vulnerability. The executives they both encountered daily wore facades of confidence, meticulous grooming, polished shoes. In contrast, here they were, stripped of the usual armor, holding on to each other in frantic anticipation. As the elevator surged downward, a faint crackling noise broke the heavy silence. The lights flickered momentarily, and for a heartbeat, everything seemed suspended in time. Then came the voice. It filtered through the crackling noise, distant but clear enough to send a ripple of anxiety running through Marcus. The name came from the small speaker inside the elevator, as if the universe was eavesdropping on their predicament. "Are you there?" The woman beside him, Jenna, went pale. "Oh no," she exclaimed, gripping her phone. "That's my CEO." Her distress was palpable, every breath coming faster. "Just answer," Marcus urged, the instinct to comfort her bubbling up. He knew the voice had power, the kind that could determine success or failure. Taking a shaky breath, Jenna pressed the button, nervous fingers trembling. "Yes, I'm here," she finally managed to say. The CEO's voice crackled back, saying, "I need your take on the presentation." Just those words sent a wave of realization crashing over Marcus. He understood the feeling of being on the edge of a precipice, ready to fall at any moment. "Tell him what you believe," he whispered, needing to guide her. Jenna's brows knitted together as she looked at Marcus, her uncertainty stark against the glowing elevator lights. "But you've got this," he insisted, locking eyes with her. "Your ideas are solid, Jenna." Taking another breath, she turned back to the phone, nodding as if Marcus's encouragement could be felt through the ether. Air in the elevator shifted, a palpable buzz of adrenaline. Marcus felt as if he were holding the space for something monumental at crossroads. They had caught the attention of fate in this moment of vulnerability. "Jenna," the CEO said, "you sound nervous. You need to project strength." She hesitated, then looked at Marcus again, seeking strength. It was like a light flickered on, the fear began to melt away. "I'm all in." The CEO paused, the silence stretching as long as the elevator's descent. "That's the spirit, Jenna. I'll draft up the plans." As Jenna hung up, an electric sigh spread through the space. The tension dissipated, replaced with a palpable thrill of accomplishment. "I did it," she exclaimed, her eyes shining. Marcus laughed, feeling the rush of relief wash over them both. "See." Then the elevator jolted again, but this time it felt different, like a parting gift, tinged with anticipation. The lights flickered once more and they halted, just for a moment, as if the elevator itself were holding its breath. Jenna said, panic creeping back into her voice. "Even if it is, we'll find a way out," Marcus reassured, his voice unwavering, projecting a calm he didn't fully feel. "We've talked, we're connected now." But just as he spoke those words, the elevator lurched again. The lights blinked and then, darkness, the world outside vanished completely. Jenna cried out, her hand finding his arm in the darkness. The panic in her voice felt like a physical force. "Hey, it's okay," Marcus said, his heart racing alongside hers. "Let's focus on what we know." In that pitch-black space, vulnerability seeped in like a whisper, curling around them. Marcus felt a wave of connection, raw, real, and powerful. The world outside became irrelevant. Everything that mattered was right there between them. She asked, her voice trembling. "Of course they will," he replied, reaching for her hand, grasping it tightly as if it were an anchor. But they both understood that they had already experienced a kind of freedom beyond the corporate chains, one that came from being seen for who they really were, not just titles, not just expectations. They were human, responding and reacting to life's pressures in real time, moments stretched into what felt like hours. There in darkness, Marcus and Jenna found themselves sharing stories, hopes, fears, ambitions. He revealed his struggles, the grit it took to climb the corporate ladder. She shared her dreams, the pressure of expectations, and the drive that kept her going. "I always thought I had to be perfect to succeed," she confessed. "I don't know," Marcus exclaimed, energized by her honesty. "It doesn't matter how pristine your resume is. Success isn't just about numbers, it's about people." That simple truth hung in the air, vibrant and alive. As they shared, they became allies against the darkness, two people facing uncertainty, carving a path amidst chaos. Finally, after an eternity that felt both like a moment and an age, the lights flickered back to life. The elevator jerked, and with a sigh, they felt it begin to move again. A sense of buoyancy blossomed in Marcus's chest, excitement intertwined with relief. The doors slid open with a soft asterisk ding, revealing a brightly lit hallway where people bustled about, unaware of the misadventure that had just unfolded. They stepped out into the world anew, breathless and eager, as if they had triumphed over a great battle. "Thank you," Jenna said, her voice low and sincere. Marcus smiled, his heart full. As they parted ways, a new connection blossomed beyond business, beyond the pressures of the corporate grind. Two people who had started as strangers were now bound by a shared experience that could never be taken away. Standing there momentarily, Marcus realized something monumental. Life, especially in the chaotic swirl of ambition and performance, is often about those unexpected moments where vulnerability turns into strength and where simply holding the door open can lead to something beautiful. With one last glance back at Jenna, he stepped into the bustling world of the office, a clarity bursting in his chest. Today, the elevator had not just descended through floors, it had plummeted into the heart of what it meant to be human. And as he walked into a sunlit corridor, he felt ready to face anything that came next. The elevator doors were nearly closed when Marcus made a split-second decision that would alter the course of his life. He pressed the hold button, a mix of instinct and curiosity pulling him back. The metal door swung open once more, revealing a frantic young woman rushing towards him, her brow dampened with sweat, particles of worry dancing in her wide eyes. She exclaimed, almost tumbling into the small, confined space. As the door sealed them both in, Marcus caught a whiff of her floral perfume mixed with a hint of anxiety. It was a strange cocktail that hung in the air as the elevator lurched downward. He smiled at her, trying to calm the turbulence he could see in her face. He joked, hoping to ease the palpable tension. She laughed softly, though the nervousness still shadowed her features. "Trying to make an important call," she said, fumbling with her phone as she glanced at the display. "Meeting with the CEO in 5 minutes." The elevator continued its descent, each jolt tightening a knot in the pit of Marcus's stomach. He didn't want to feel reckless, but he couldn't shake the notion that today was going to be unlike any other day. "You've got this," he encouraged, projecting confidence he didn't entirely feel. Her eyes lit up, the fleeting panic replaced with a spark of eagerness, pitching a new marketing strategy. The enthusiasm in her voice was infectious, yet Marcus could see the worry simmering just below the surface. "Sounds high stakes," he replied, hoping to light the fire of determination in her. "I want to enhance our social media presence and leverage influencers," she said, her hands animatedly gesturing. The elevator suddenly jolted and stopped. The lights flickered, then dimmed slightly. They exchanged confused glances, and Marcus felt the tension return, heavy like the air before a storm. "This isn't good," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It's probably just a glitch," he assured her, though uncertainty knotted in his own stomach. Yet part of him questioned if today was like any other day. They were on the 20th floor, and the corporate world below them was swirling with urgency. He reached out, pressing the emergency button instinctively. Nothing happened except for a dull beeping sound. "Great," she muttered, running her fingers through her hair, the frustration boiling over. As moments passed in the claustrophobic space, that familiar tick of anxiety crept back into Marcus's mind. He thought about his own job, his own dreams suspended under a ceiling of expectations. He longed to take a risk to break free from conformity, and now here they were trapped. He asked, trying to draw her attention away from spiraling thoughts. I just really needed to impress the CEO," she admitted, her voice softening. Marcus understood. The pressure of performance was a beast they both had faced. He recalled a pivotal moment in his career when he had to present a project to the board. He had nearly stumbled over his words, fear gripping him, until a colleague encouraged him to speak from the heart. "You know," he began carefully, "the CEO is just a person." "He's not just a person," she replied with a strained smile. Before he could argue, the elevator jerked again, this time throwing them to the side. Jenna lost her balance and stumbled, grabbing at his arm in a moment of panic. She exclaimed, "But stay calm," he urged, grasping her shoulder reassuringly. "We can get through this." He took a deep breath, inviting her to follow his lead. She did, and slowly her body relaxed against the wall. And then, through the crackling silence of the elevator, they both heard it, a voice crackling through static. "Jenna," came the sound, breaking through the tension that hung heavily around them. The voice was authoritative, yet warm, her eyes widened. The panic in her face morphed into a mix of dread and excitement. "Answer him," Marcus urged as the lights flickered, illuminating the panic etched in her features. She hesitated, glancing at her phone. "But what if I mess it up? Your ideas matter, just speak from the heart," he said, hoping to ignite a spark of confidence within her. With a shaky breath, she pressed the button, holding it to her ear. "Yes, I'm here," she replied, her voice trembling but steady. "Jenna, we need to make a decision today about the marketing strategy." The seconds felt like hours. Jenna looked at Marcus, seeking strength. He nodded, a silent encouragement that urged her forward. "I believe we can enhance our brand's outreach through innovative social media tactics," she began, each word becoming more assured. Marcus felt pride swell within him as she floated over her ideas, each word crisp and clear. He whispered, almost like it was a secret. In that moment, as she pitched her proposal, something shifted. Every ounce of anxiety that had previously weighed on her seemed to evaporate, replaced with a fierce passion. The dim light of the elevator cast shadows across her face, highlighting the determination that transformed her demeanor. "Jenna, you sound confident," the CEO said, his voice warm yet authoritative. "We need that kind of energy in our team. I'm on board with your ideas." A rush of relief washed over both of them. A knot of tension slowly unraveled, and a smile spread across Jenna's face. But just as quickly as the moment of triumph came, the elevator shuddered again, the lights flickering ominously, the cool hum of machinery turning into something more erratic. The world around them fell into a disarray of shadows. Jenna's voice hissed in disbelief, gripping his arm tightly, her heart pounding. "I don't know," Marcus replied, feeling fear surge in the pit of his stomach once more. "But we're not alone in this." They stood there in the dimness, and suddenly it wasn't just an elevator. It transformed into a microcosm of all the pressures they faced in the corporate landscape. It was a visceral representation of their fear, doubts, and the sheer unpredictability of life. A silence enveloped them, thick as molasses. It was a silence so heavy that it pressed down on them, but in that stillness they found a strange comfort. They were alone together in this chaos. Jenna asked, her voice barely above a whisper. All at once, Marcus understood the depths of her feelings. He had often felt like he was in a constant balancing act, trying to prove himself, trying to belong. Every day, he admitted. The darkness seemed less intimidating each time he spoke. Perhaps they were more than colleagues, more than strangers on the same elevator. They were allies bound by ambition and hope. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the lights flickered back to life, buzzing with energy, and the elevator lurched back into motion. They felt the upward movement, the rush of possibility. As the doors opened once more, they stepped out into a world buzzing with activity, people rushing, conversations colliding. Jenna's face lit up in realization. "I did it," she said, almost breathless. He couldn't help but smile. "You were amazing. You turned that fight into a flight." They exchanged glances, an unspoken understanding passing between them. They had shared something transformative, a moment that would reverberate long after the elevator ride ended. "Thank you, really," she said, radiating a newfound energy. "I hesitate to think about it, honestly," he replied. "We were both in that together, and it means more than just a job or ambitious dreams." As he watched her walk away head high, confidence radiating, he felt a rush of purpose swelling inside him. This day had morphed from a mere commute to an epiphany. He stepped further into the bright corridor of possibility, feeling buoyed by their shared experience. The elevator, once a vessel of uncertainty, had transformed into a catalyst of change. It had taught them both that vulnerability can spark growth, that life's unpredictability can manifest as opportunity. And with every step he took, Marcus felt ready to confront the unknowns ahead, knowing that even the smallest act of kindness could reverberate through the lives of others, changing everything in its wake. Marcus stepped into the elevator, pressing the button for the 25th floor. He was mentally ticking through his day, budget reports, team meetings, and perhaps a brief run on the treadmill before heading home. Just another mundane day at the office. But before the doors could slide shut, a voice piped up from behind him. "Wait." Without thinking, Marcus reached out, jamming his finger over the door hold button, forcing the doors back open for a young woman racing toward him, her heels clacking against the marble floor. She barely made it inside, her breath coming in quick bursts. "Thanks so much," she panted, brushing a strand of hair from her sweaty forehead. "Catastrophic is a strong word," Marcus replied with a brief chuckle, trying to lighten the mood. As the elevator began its descent, he couldn't help but notice the tension radiating from her. The air thickened with unspoken worries. He asked, hoping to steer the conversation back to safer territory. The 30th, she said, biting her lip. "I have a call with the CEO in 10 minutes. Her voice trailed off, replaced by a sharp inhale. "Just take a breath." "You got this," Marcus said, even though he could feel a tight knot forming in his own stomach. He'd never presented to the CEO, but he could imagine the weight of those expectations pressing down on her. "Thanks, I'm Jenna," she said, her voice steadying a bit. "I hope I don't choke." "Marcus," he introduced himself. "And believe me, everyone feels that pressure at some point." As they hit the 20th floor, the elevator lurched. The lights flickered before going dark, and their small world descended into silence. The sudden shift sent Jenna's heart racing. She gasped, panic creeping into her voice. "Probably just a temporary glitch," Marcus reassured her, pressing the emergency button as if it would somehow magically turn the lights back on. The button beeped uselessly, but it was the only thing he could think to do. A moment later, the lights flickered back to life, but the elevator was still unresponsive, suspended between floors. Frustration bubbled up in Jenna's expression. "I can't be stuck here. I need to be on that call." "Hey, we'll get out of here," Marcus said, gripping her shoulder. "We're in this together, remember?" Jenna nodded, but the anxiety was still clouding her eyes. What if I blow it? Something in her vulnerability struck a chord. Suddenly, Marcus recalled his early days at the company, standing in front of the board, trembling with nerves while he pitched his very first project. He knew too well the suffocating fear that came with feeling like everything hung in the balance. "You're not alone in this," he said quietly. Jenna stared at him, searching for reassurance. "Definitely," Marcus replied, feeling a strange kinship forming. "I once had to present a major proposal with just a few hours' notice because someone else fell through. I thought I'd crash and burn." Seconds felt like minutes as they stood in the dimness of the elevator. "I know it can be," he said, "but you've got to trust yourself. Lean into your knowledge and passion." Then in that weighty silence, the voice of the CEO crackled through a speaker, startling both of them. Jenna, hearts leaping, they exchanged wide-eyed glances. Jenna's hand flew to her mouth, her breath hitching in her throat. "What?" she whispered, panic resurging. "Just answer him," Marcus urged, sensing the urgency. They were directly linked by fate. Their stories had twisted around each other in this moment. With a shaky breath, Jenna pressed the phone to her ear. "Jenna, we need to finalize the presentation. I can't stress enough how important your input is," the CEO said, his voice laced with authority but surprisingly calm. "Right," Jenna replied, her voice trembling slightly but growing in steadiness. "I believe we can leverage influencers to build a more authentic connection with our audience." The CEO's voice held a hint of intrigue. In the scattered glow of the elevator lights, Marcus could see determination building inside her. "I've outlined posts that feel real and relatable, where our brand becomes a part of the community rather than an advertisement. This isn't just about selling, it's about storytelling." Marcus couldn't help but feel a rush of pride swelling inside him as Jenna found her voice, her passion igniting the once stale air. The claustrophobic space felt larger with every word she spoke. The CEO's voice was encouraging now, and with each flowing sentence, Jenna grew bolder. The lights flickered again, momentarily threatening to plunge them back into darkness, but the intensity between them held. Jenna continued, her ideas cascading like a waterfall. "We need to embrace modern marketing methods while staying true to the essence of our brand, using our influencers to create authentic engagement." For Marcus, this felt like a scene from a movie, electric with tension and urgency. Here they were, surfacing from their fears, transforming their panic into purpose, empowered by connection and clarity. The CEO asked, his interest piqued. "We could start with a detailed plan for our target demographics," Jenna said, gathering momentum. "Let's shape our content around their stories." "Excellent," the CEO said, his voice chiming in with excitement. In that moment, the elevator shuddered gently before jolting back to life. The doors began to open, revealing a flood of light in the bustling office space beyond. Jenna's eyes glimmered with hope and resilience, yet her pulse quickened. "Thank you, I'll follow up with a detailed proposal," she said, pressing the disconnect button with newfound confidence. "Let's talk soon," the CEO replied, warmth threading through his words. As Jenna stepped out into the welcoming chaos of the office, Marcus felt a rush of elation. He exclaimed, unable to contain his pride. "More than I dared to hope for," Jenna said, her voice thick with emotion. "You held your own," Marcus insisted, his heart swelling with admiration for her courage. "Maybe we need more moments like this," she said, a broad smile blossoming across her face. As they moved apart, a chorus of ringing phones and bustling footsteps enveloped them. The once supportive walls of the elevator had morphed into a vibrant world alive with opportunity. Marcus stood there for a moment, reflecting on the brief period they had spent suspended between fear and possibility. He realized that their spontaneous connection didn't just help Jenna, it had ignited something in him as well. Life was unpredictable, sometimes crashing down like an elevator stuck between floors. But in those moments he'd learned a radical truth. Vulnerability was a strength, and it could bridge the gap between strangers, turning anxious moments into powerful connections. As Marcus stepped back into the rhythm of his day, he felt invigorated, ready to tackle whatever challenges lay ahead. Today wasn't just another ordinary day, it was a reminder that sometimes holding the elevator isn't just a gesture of kindness. It's an invitation to uncover profound moments that could change everything. The moment the elevator doors slid shut, Marcus felt a ripple of uncertainty wash over him. Just another day at the corporate office, right? Yet standing there, the familiar hum of machinery washing over him, he sensed something different in the air, a tension that ran deeper than the usual hustle. He pressed the button for the 15th floor, mind wandering to the countless spreadsheets he had yet to review. His thoughts abruptly jolted as a hand shot through the closing doors, a desperate voice following behind it. Wait, instinct kicked in. He slammed his finger over the hold button, a rush of adrenaline sparking through his veins. The metallic doors sprang open again, and in rushed a young woman, her high heels clicking nervously against the polished floor. "Thank you," she breathed, clearly flustered. As the doors sealed them in, Marcus caught a whiff of her floral perfume, mixed with the anxiety radiating off her. He asked with a casual smile, hoping to ease the tension. "Something like that," she said, raking a hand through her hair. "I have a call with the CEO in 5 minutes." The elevator lurched downwards, and Marcus felt the air within their small enclosure thicken. He echoed. "Yeah," she replied, her eyes wide. "I've been preparing for weeks." "Just remember, they're people too," Marcus replied, feeling a familiar knot tighten in his stomach. He had worked in corporate for years, seen the pressures firsthand. "But what if I choke? This could change my life," she fretted, visibly twitching as the elevator jerked again. Before Marcus could reassure her, the lights flickered. The elevator jolted to a stop with a metallic thud. Jenna exclaimed, her voice rising an octave. "It's probably just a temporary glitch," Marcus assured her, though the uncertainty seeped into his own voice. He pressed the emergency button, but it only emitted an annoying beep. "Great," she wailed, rushing a hand over her face in frustration. "Hey, we'll get through this," he said, gripping her shoulder gently. "Let's breathe together." Taking a deep inhale, he noticed her gaze follow his. They both breathed out slowly, trying to ground themselves against the rising tide of anxiety. In that pool of darkness and uncertainty, an electric connection formed between them. Marcus remembered moments in his life when he felt utterly on the edge, suffocating under layers of expectations like presenting in front of a board of directors or pitching ideas to clients. He wondered if vulnerability could transform this moment. Jenna asked, her eyes searching his for solace. He thought for a moment and then chose to reveal a piece of himself. "Yeah. I once had about 30 minutes to prepare for a pitch because someone else canceled at the last minute. I stood up there shaking." She blinked, the fear in her eyes slightly softening. "Absolutely. I chose to share my vision and it resonated with them." As they stood there in silence, the lights flickered back on. "See, it's a good sign," Marcus said with a slight grin. But the elevator remained still, suspended between floors, a sentiment of discomfort clinging to them. "I just wanted to make a good impression," Jenna confessed, vulnerability cracking her voice. "And that's exactly why you should embrace it," Marcus encouraged her, feeling that flicker of excitement for her. Suddenly, the elevator trembled and the lights dimmed slightly again. Then came the voice. "Jenna." It crackled through the speaker, loud and clear. Jenna's wide eyes met Marcus's, and for a moment time seemed to stand still. "What?" she whispered, panic returning to her expression. "Just answer," he urged gently, moving closer. The tension hung thick in the air, both of them aware that everything was on the line. With shaky hands, Jenna pressed her phone against her ear. "I need your insights on the marketing strategy," the CEO said. "Can you give me an overview?" Marcus could feel her pulse quicken, but he saw the fire reigniting within her. We've developed some strong initiatives, and I think we can reshape our approach to engage more with our audience," she began slowly, her voice making its way back from the brink of panic. "I need more than that, Jenna. We're betting on you here. Tell me how it's going to work," the CEO pressed, his tone a mix of challenge and confidence. When Jenna looked back at Marcus, he nodded vigorously. "You know this, just speak your truth," he encouraged softly. She nodded back, her face regaining its color and confidence as she began to elaborate. "We can leverage social media influencers to create authentic connections with our target demographic." The way she articulated her ideas, infused with medical knowledge and tenacity, felt electric. Her words began to rush forward, cascading as confidence took hold. Marcus exclaimed, surprised by his own excitement, recognizing the power of her voice. "Community is what drives loyalty," Jenna continued, emboldened by their camaraderie. "The The more she spoke, the more the urgency lifted. The elevator lights flickered again, but this time Marcus felt a rush of exhilaration. Every second brought Jenna closer to her goal, carving a path through doubt and shadow. The CEO inquired, encouraging her to dig deeper. "Sounds promising," the CEO said, his tone shifting. Suddenly, the elevator lurched to life, the doors beginning to open, exposing the bright office beyond. A flood of excitement swelled within Jenna as she turned to Marcus, eyes shining with triumph. "I did it," he laughed, feeling his heart swell. "You were phenomenal." Her smile was radiant, capturing the moment's thrill. "You encouraged me to break through the fear." But the revelation came swiftly. In their shared struggle, something deeper had developed. Yes, it was about business, ambitions, and the CEO call, but it was also about human connection, to people crossing paths, finding strength in vulnerability. "Don't sell yourself short," Marcus said, grinning back. "You faced down your fear and emerged stronger." The elevator doors opened wide, releasing them into the vibrant chaos of the office, a web of activity filled with bustling employees, ringing phones, and the glow of computer screens. "Thank you again," Jenna said, gratitude spilling from her. "Just remember," Marcus replied as their paths began to diverge, "life is full of surprises." With a final smile, Jenna merged into the whirlwind of the office, her newfound confidence radiating like sunlight. Marcus stood there, transformed by the experience, recognizing the profound impact a simple act of kindness had made. In the days that followed, he felt a renewed sense of purpose and clarity. He realized that holding that elevator had been only the beginning. It was about connections forged in vulnerability and courage that drew people together. Sometimes you're not just holding an elevator, you're opening doors to new possibilities, reshaping lives, and changing the world one small moment at a time. And with that realization, Marcus stepped back into the rhythm of life, ready to embrace every challenge, knowing that connection and bravery always pave the way forward. The elevator doors were about to close when Marcus made a quick decision that changed everything. He stretched out his arm, stopping the doors mid-slide. A woman's voice called out from behind him, filled with a blend of urgency and hope. "Wait." As she rushed in, Marcus caught a glimpse of her, a whirlwind of frayed nerves and determination. She barely had time to regain her composure before the doors slid shut behind her. She breathed, leaning against the wall, her eyes wide and frantic. Marcus could smell her floral perfume mixed with a hint of sweat, a whirlwind of emotion clinging to the air. He asked, trying to anchor the moment to ease the palpable anxiety that filled the cramped space. 20th floor, she replied, fumbling with her phone. "I have a call with the CEO in just a few minutes." A knot tightened in Marcus's stomach. He took a mental step back, remembering similar moments in his own career, those nerve-wracking pitches and last-minute deadlines that could change everything. "You'll be fine," he offered, even as uncertainty simmered just beneath his surface. She said, her voice tinged with doubt, "I mean, what if I choke? This is my big opportunity." The elevator lurched suddenly, the lights flickering, and Marcus shot her an encouraging glance. "Let's not jump to conclusions just yet," he asked, trying to redirect her thoughts away from panic. "I'm pitching a new marketing strategy aimed at younger audiences," she explained, her eyes darting back to her phone as if it held her salvation. As the elevator descended, it felt like they were plummeting through layers of anxiety. The weight of their surroundings seemed to close in on them. He could sense her spiraling thoughts, he felt them too. The elevator unexpectedly jolted to a halt, the lights dimmed for a moment, plunging them into semi-darkness. Jenna's voice rose in panic, her eyes wide. "It's probably a temporary glitch," Marcus replied, but he could feel his own voice faltering. Moments like this could derail even the most polished presentations. Pressing the emergency button, he hoped to stimulate some movement. The elevator let out a weak beep. "Wonderful," she said, running a hand through her hair. "Now what? Let's stay calm," he urged, trying to keep her grounded. He was aware she was on the brink. He could see it in her body language, her fingers tapping restlessly against her phone. "Easy for you to say," she shot back, frustration flooding her words. "You're not the one about to face the CEO. Holding it together is part of it," Marcus replied, his heart racing. Through the years, he'd learned that pressure often informed greatness, sharpened focus. "Think about that moment when you successfully pitch." "Maybe," Jenna said hesitantly, glancing at him sideways. "Failure isn't the end, it's a stepping stone," he replied, hoping to instill some courage. "I've stumbled before, and believe me, it was embarrassing." "That's easy for you to say," she retorted, swallowing her anxiety. He replied, attempting a light-hearted chuckle that fell flat. "I had to pitch a major project to upper management without any prep because someone else flaked. My hands were shaking. I thought I'd made a fool of myself, but I leaned into my passion." Jenna held her breath as the moments dragged on. Her nervous energy was tangible, a kind of fizzing electricity that hummed in the cramped space. They stood together, suspended between fear and hope, two lives crossing in a moment of uncertainty. She asked, eyeing him with curiosity. "Absolutely. Every time I walk into a room full of executives, I remind myself I'm not there to impress." Just as she seemed to consider this, the elevator lurched again, jolting them. Dread washed over Jenna's face. Then we find a way, Marcus insisted, feeling a surge of adrenaline. Can you hear me? You're capable. Her voice softened, no longer laced with panic but clarity. A moment of silence filled the space between them, each holding a piece of shared struggle. Then suddenly an unexpected crackle came from the elevator speaker. Jenna, it was the voice of the CEO, clear and commanding. Her eyes went wide and a wave of panic washed over her. Just answer him, Marcus urged, feeling urgency penetrate through the stillness. With shaking hands, she held the phone tighter, pressing it to her ear. We need your insights on the marketing strategy now. The CEO's voice boomed with authority. Time stopped in that instant. Jenna looked to Marcus, questions swirling behind her eyes. What do I say? Speak your truth. Relay what you believe, he urged, a new wave of determination rising in him. Taking a deep breath, Jenna straightened her posture. The fear lingered but began dissipating as she spoke. Go on, the CEO replied, intrigued. There's a growing demand for authenticity in advertising. If we can leverage social media and influencers, it could fundamentally shift how our audience perceives the brand, Jenna explained, her voice growing steadier with each passing syllable. Marcus felt pride swell within him as her passion ignited. There's something powerful about engaging with people where they already are on social media. Interesting approach, the CEO said, his tone shifting subtly. We can start with targeted campaigns highlighting real stories that resonate with our customers. He pressed, genuinely curious. Jenna navigated through her thoughts, and with each phrase, the confidence built a liberating rush that surged within her. That way we foster loyalty by building trust. Excellent point, the CEO said. Let's discuss this further once you're back on solid ground. With that, Jenna hung up, her hands trembling with a mix of disbelief and jubilant energy. I did it, see. Marcus exclaimed, excitement bursting from him. As the elevator doors slid open, reality rushed back in, flooding them with light and noise from the bustling office. Jenna stepped into the freedom of the office space, her face radiating triumph and disbelief. I can't believe what just happened, she said, her voice still shaken but more determined. Marcus felt a swell of fulfillment. You did all the work. You found your voice when it mattered most. Smiled, the worry lines on her face starting to fade. Exactly, he replied, warmth spreading inside him. We're all fighting our battles. Jenna turned back, ready to dive into the chaotic world of numbers and decisions, no longer a fragment of doubt but a force of clarity. And who knows, with a playful nod, she disappeared into the sea of people, leaving Marcus standing at the threshold, a sense of purpose washing over him. In the days that followed, he felt an intense clarity of vision. Moments like theirs lingered beyond the elevator, the connection that had lit a spark within them both. He remembered the power of vulnerability, how it opened doors and allowed them to break down barriers of fear. And as he stepped back into the groove of his daily routine, he felt immense gratitude. Life was overflowing with unpredictable turns, but every encounter held potential, an opportunity to forge lasting connections. Ultimately, it wasn't just about holding the elevator. It was about being present for each other, lifting one another during critical moments, and embracing the unpredictability of every new chance life threw their way. Those small instances of human connection not only transformed their day, they could transform lives, weaving dreams and courage together in a tapestry of shared experiences. The elevator doors almost shut when Marcus made a split-second decision. He reached out, pressing the hold button, an impulse driven by instinct rather than thought. A voice called out from behind him, laced with urgency. Wait, a woman rushed in, breathless and flustered. Her hair was slightly askew and her blouse was partially untucked. She barely made it inside as the doors slid shut behind her. She gasped, leaning against the wall. The air was thick with her anxiety and the sweet scent of her floral perfume. Marcus smiled, trying to ease the tense atmosphere. Yeah, she said, gripping her phone tightly. Her voice trailed off, panic flickering in her eyes. He repeated, intrigued. You have no idea, she continued, fidgeting with her phone. I've been preparing for weeks. As the elevator descended, the tension was palpable. Marcus remembered the pressure that came with meetings like this. He had faced it himself countless times, standing in front of the board, delivering pitches that could make or break his career. You've got this, he assured her. Easy for you to say, she replied, her voice shaky. True, Marcus admitted, feeling his own nerves responding to hers. The elevator suddenly jolted and the lights flickered. The world around them morphed into a confinement, thick with the weight of uncertainty. She cried, gripping the metal railing. Probably just a glitch, he said, though his own heart raced in sync with hers. He pressed the emergency button, but it only buzzed weakly, offering no reassurance. Great. She exclaimed, her voice climbing in pitch. Let's take a moment, Marcus suggested, trying to project calm. He inhaled deeply and exhaled slowly. As he focused on his breath, he noticed her chest rising and falling. It wasn't easy, but they both needed to regain control. She whispered, vulnerability spilling from her. Marcus felt the knot in his stomach tight. He understood her fear all too well. I get it, I've been there. He laughed, hoping to relieve some of the tension. She asked, her eyes searching his. I leaned into my message. I remembered why I was there. She took a deep breath, something shifting in her posture as the air between them seemed to lighten. Then just speak from the heart, Marcus encouraged. You're knowledgeable and passionate, that's what matters. As she absorbed his words, the elevator unexpectedly jolted again, leaving them both gripping the railing. Jenna let out a small shriek, and Marcus felt his heart racing. The lights flickered once more, and it suddenly felt like time stood still in their metallic box of uncertainty. Just when everything seemed to teeter on the brink, a crackling voice emerged from the speaker overhead. Jenna, her eyes widened, and Marcus felt a jolt of adrenaline rush through him. Jenna exclaimed, her panic surfacing once more. Just answer him, Marcus urged, feeling the weight of the moment. They were at a tipping point, caught between their fears and aspirations. Taking a shaky breath, Jenna pressed her phone against her ear. I need your take on the marketing strategy. The CEO's voice was firm, cutting through the tension. Time froze as Marcus watched Jenna process what was happening. He saw the spark of realization. This was her moment, even if they were stuck in an elevator. You've got this, he whispered, a rallying cry to embolden her. With determination, Jenna straightened her shoulders. Yes, I believe we can reshape our approach to engage younger audiences, she began, her voice trembling but finding a rhythm. The CEO pressed, his tone demanding clarity. The words flowed out of her, and Marcus could see the flicker of confidence dissolving the fear. We have a unique opportunity to connect through authentic storytelling. Marcus felt a rush of pride swell within him, watching her transform before his eyes. Yes, he encouraged, practically bursting with enthusiasm. See, marketing has changed. Her passion swelled, and Marcus could sense the defiance rising in her, a wave of empowerment surging through her veins. Excellent point, the CEO replied, his interest piqued. As Jenna detailed her strategy, the elevator began to shake slightly, but the momentum of her words carried her through. Good. Go on, the CEO said, now engrossed in what she was saying. There needs to be real engagement that makes our customer feel valued, Jenna continued, excitement building in her voice. Marcus could hardly contain his excitement. This was the energy that every corporate environment craved, authentic ideas evoking genuine connections. Let's talk more about your ideas when you're back on stable ground, the CEO said before disconnecting the call. As the sound faded, the elevator jerked gently and the lights stabilized. Jenna dropped her phone, staring wide-eyed at Marcus. I did it. Yes, you were incredible, Marcus cheered, feeling the adrenaline pulsing through them both, but Jenna looked suddenly serious. Hey, that was all you, Marcus replied with sincerity. You found your voice. The elevator doors slid open, washing over them with the bright light and buzz of the office beyond. As Jenna stepped into the vibrant world, a new energy radiating from her, Marcus felt a shift within himself too. Thank you again, she said, her smile reflecting pure joy. I owe you one. With a nod, she disappeared into the cascading flow of the office, leaving him standing in the threshold of an opportunity. In that moment, Marcus reflected on the profound connection they had forged amidst uncertainty. Life in the corporate world often felt driven by pressures and outcomes, but this was different. He realized that in the simplest act of holding the elevator, he had opened a door for Jenna, a moment to breathe, share hopes, and face fears together. The simplicity of that connection, less about titles and more about humanity, resonated deeply. As days passed, Marcus carried that moment with him, a reminder of the impact tiny gestures could have. Every time he saw the CEO in the halls, he thought of Jenna and her journey, her transformation from fear to empowerment. And in the great tapestry of life, he understood that it isn't just about professional accolades. It's about the lives we touch, the encouragement we give, and the courage we inspire in one another. With new purpose, he embraced each day, ready to face whatever came next, knowing that sometimes just holding the elevator is all it takes to change someone's life. As he walked into the living pulse of the office, he felt invigorated, ready for new challenges and connections that awaited him around every corner. The elevator doors were inches away from closing when Marcus shot forward, pressing the hold button with a sense of purpose. A woman's frantic voice echoed behind him. Wait, with an urgency that left no room for hesitation, she slipped inside just as the doors began their final slide. The air shifted instantly, thick with the blend of her anxiety and the floral perfume that lingered in the small space. She exclaimed, visibly flustered as she smoothed her jacket. Marcus took a quick look at her, a whirl of determination, eyes wide with apprehension. She added, breathless, he asked, trying to ground the moment. 25, she replied, her voice trembling slightly. I have a call with the CEO in 10 minutes if I miss it. The tension in her voice resonated deep within him. Marcus knew what it was like to stand on the precipice, waiting to tumble into uncertainty. He'd almost feel the pressure mounting between them as the elevator began its ascent. You'll be fine, he assured her, even as doubts chimed in the back of his mind. Easier said than done, she muttered, glancing at her phone as if it held both her salvation and doom. This is my moment. Trust me, Marcus replied, attempting to channel all the confidence he could gather. Everyone feels this way before a big pitch. As the elevator hit the 15th floor, a sudden jolt sent them both off balance. The lights flickered ominously. Uh-oh, Jenna, he had just learned her name, gasped, her eyes wide. Looks like we stopped, Marcus said, pressing the emergency button. Just as he expected, it offered nothing but a soft, useless beep. Great, just great, she shouted, frustration spilling over as she groaned and pressed her fingers against her temples. I can't be stuck right now. Let's stay calm, Marcus urged, trying not to feel the knot tightening in his own stomach. These things happen. Jenna shot back, her bravado beginning to fade. What if I lose my chance? He could see the fear flirting at the edges of her confidence and felt that same feeling welling up inside him, the pressure he faced in moments that mattered most. I know it's hard, he said, leaning slightly closer, but you can't focus on the negative. She asked, biting her lip. True, he conceded, attempting to keep his tone light, but I've been in tough spots before. Even if this elevator doesn't move, your ideas still matter. Something flickered in her eyes, recognition, perhaps. In a way, yes, he replied, voice steadying. There was a time I had to present a project to a big client. The stakes were high and I had only a few hours to prepare. I thought I'd drown in panic. She asked, the tension in her shoulders beginning to ease. Surprisingly, yes, I spoke from the heart. I wish I could be that confident, Jenna said, glancing at her phone again. The minutes mercilessly ticked away. It can still be your chance, Marcus encouraged, the urgency building inside him as he felt her despair. The elevator gave another lurch, sending them both stumbling slightly. The lights dimmed and a shudder swept through the metal box, amplifying the tension that hung between them. She lamented. Sometimes, Marcus said, trying to bring some clarity, life tests us. Think of it like a rite of passage. The elevator shivered again and then everything went silent. Jenna's breath quickened and Marcus could see her heart racing. Hey, maybe it's not so bad, he said, his voice steady. What if this is a chance to rethink your pitch? Before she could respond, an unexpected crackle erupted from the elevator's speaker. Her eyes widened and shock registered on her face. That's the CEO. Just answer him, Marcus urged, feeling the electricity in the air. You've got this. With a shaky hand, Jenna pressed her phone to her ear. Yes, I'm here, she said, her voice trembling yet surprisingly resolute. I need your insights on the proposal, the CEO said, the authority in his tone cutting through the tension. With a glance toward Marcus, Jenna took a deep breath, grounding herself in his support. Yes, I believe we need a new approach to engage younger audiences, she began, finding a semblance of her earlier confidence. He pressed, curiosity sparking through the speaker. By leveraging social media and influencers, we can create genuine connections rather than just sell products. It's about community, not advertising, she replied, her voice gaining strength with every word. That's interesting, the CEO responded, the hint of intrigue softening his authoritative tone. Jenna pushed forward, words spilling out. We need to tell stories that resonate, showcasing real customer experiences with our brand. Marcus watched her transformation, sensing her strength building like the rising tide. Each word revealed not just her ideas, but her passion, a force no elevator malfunction could curtail. Very promising, the CEO said, clearly intrigued but still probing for deeper insights. I want to start with targeted content that genuinely connects with our fan base, she outlined confidently. As she spoke, the lights flickered once more, but this time she pressed on undeterred. Marketing is shifting towards real engagement, not just another fancy ad. For the first time, the CEO's tone softened. That's exactly the direction we need to explore further. Before Jenna could respond, the elevator jolted to life and the doors swung open, plunging them both into the brightness of the lobby. She shouted, disbelief mixing with elation as she stepped out into the bustling lobby. Marcus couldn't help but grin from ear to ear. You were phenomenal. Thank you for holding the elevator and for being there, she said, her eyes alight with excitement. As they exchanged smiles, he felt something deeper, a connection forged in that metallic box, bound by shared vulnerability and courage. And just as they were about to part ways, the phone in her hand buzzed violently, jarring the moment. Jenna's expression darkened as she glanced at the screen. She said, her face falling. Marcus felt a twist of concern in his gut. Her brows furrowed and anxiety rushed back. I need you back here now. The voice on the other end snapped. Pressure cascaded through the hallway, oppressive and ferocious. Wait, it was just a small glitch, Jenna tried to explain. I was pitching the marketing strategy and excuses won't cut it. The tone was cold, slicing through her enthusiasm like glass. Marcus sensed her deflation. The weight of disappointment anchored her shoulders. He stepped closer, his heart racing. Don't listen to that, he whispered, desperately wanting to uplift her yet feeling the dark shadow of her boss hovering in the background. But she was already spiraling. I'm sorry, I'll do better, she said, her voice trembling. Marcus said, trying to get her attention as the call ended abruptly, leaving her standing in stunned silence. Suddenly, the air felt electric, anticipation crackling with the weight of looming possibilities. Marcus knew this was no simple moment, it was a turning point. She whispered, anguish twisting her features. Before he could respond, the doors of the elevator quietly slid shut behind her, leaving him alone in the bustling office lobby. An unsettling feeling settled in his gut. He wanted to help her, to somehow turn this around, but there was nothing he could do. The world buzzed around him, a blur of activity and urgency, and he stood watching, a stranger pulled into a moment that would forever change him. With one final glance back at the closing doors of the elevator, he felt the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air, decisions yet to be made, paths yet to be chosen. In a world that often felt scripted, this was a reality check that echoed in ways he couldn't fully understand. And then, as he turned away, he sensed a shift within himself. Life was messy and unpredictable, but somewhere in that turbulence lay the seeds of possibility. Just like Jenna, he would have to embrace whatever came next. But as he took his first step away, the elevator lights dimmed, flickering as if in a warning. From down the hall, he suddenly heard the unmistakable sound of hurried footsteps approaching, the click of heels echoing on the polished floor. Turning around, he braced himself for what might come next, knowing that nothing was ever truly finished. It was only beginning.